He's done so much for me, I cannot tell it all.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I am immensely gratified and exceedingly humbled by my selection as guest speaker at this auspicious and historic occasion. Historic because this is the first of such undertaking by the Federation of Liberian Youth since the incumbency of His Excellency President Dr. George Manuel Weah and the Mighty Coalition for Democratic Change. It is also my understanding that my years of advocacy for academic freedom and mass participation in the governance process of the state, coupled with myself that 3 decades of contribution to the human resource development of the young people of this country, underpin your decision to zero in on me as your guest speaker. Let me hasten to congratulate you, Mr. Amos Williams, President-elect, and other officers-elect of Liberia's premier umbrella youth organization for your elections to these responsible offices. I will emphasize responsible offices. Your election is indicative of the new democratic spirit that has engulfed the country, as well as the resolve of the young people to peacefully choose their leaders. This new epoch in transitional student leadership is a radical departure from what flies electioneering processes are being known for. Let me therefore join my fellow compatriots in wishing your administration well, and I stand ready to working with President Weah to assist FLA in furtherance of its objectives. Throughout my political conscious years, the Federation of Liberian Youth has garnered a kind of reputation that is akin to resistant organization, well off tangent of its core mission. Throughout my political conscious years, the Federation of Liberian Youth has garnered a kind of reputation that is akin to a resistant organization, well off tangent of its core mission. My intent today is to hold a frank discussion with a view to arriving at a new paradigm, one that positions FLA as a contemporary premier youth umbrella organization. It is precisely within this context and consistent with the theme of this inauguration that I have chosen to speak to you on the topic, Investing in Youth, a Call to Action. Liberia has had a checkered political history, from a one-party dominant state, a military junta state, a pariah state, an interim arrangement state, a pseudo-democratic state, a transitional state, and a democratic state. In each phase of the state's metamorphosis, the Federation of Liberian Youth has been active. An experiment aimed at addressing the youth question was midwifed in 1974, named the Urban Youth Council, with its activities concentrated largely in urban areas, where majority of the young people did not domicile. Perhaps in an attempt to address the anomaly, an other legislature in 1978 settled the legal question when the Federation of Liberian Youth was enacted into law thus attaining a truly national character. Paradoxically, the Federation of Liberian Youth came into existence during the era of the one-party dominant rule, wherein the political ecosystem was very intolerant to dissenting views. FLA was established precisely to promote the cradle of friendship, mutual understanding, and cooperation amongst the youth. Its establishment was aimed at maintaining a broad-based, democratic, pluralistic, non-governmental, non-partisan ethos. Whatever the original raison d'etre was to have established FLA, it nonetheless assumed different parallel mandates in each phase, will no doubt represented a radical departure from its core mission. This seems understandable, considering the fact that youths have been dubbed future leaders and thus their agitation for greater participation in the affairs of the state could not be relegated. This belief may have provided a fertile ground for FLA to present itself as the antithesis. The Cambridge English Dictionary defines antithesis as the exact opposite or opposition, while the Oxford Dictionary defines antithesis as a person or thing that is the direct opposite of someone or something else. To put it simply, an antithesis is the action of making things negative. The influential German philosopher Friedrich Hegel, the progenitor of the triad, thesis, antithesis, and synthesis, implies that history and progress should not be seen as a straight line, but rather as zigzag, shaped by the ways in which people bump into barriers or face disappointments and then readjust their course. Moreover, simple history reveals that there can be no antithesis without the existence of the synthesis. So, what then is the thesis? From the content provided supply, thesis connotes the regime in power or status quo with all its antecedents and functionaries. Interestingly, a youth organization established to advocate for the well-being of the young people in the country has transformed itself into an antithesis or opposition to the government. The case of the antithesis where our youth community fueled hatred and extreme misrepresentations, provocations, anti-national development program, anti-government, anti-officials, as well as the rise of anti-government groupings that will empowers the minority and disempowers the majority. Liberian youths, since the 70s, have always been fascinated by big dreams of the future. Dreams about a better Liberia were often negated by extreme contempt for every government. Negative agitation by the young people against constitutional government may have set the stage for the brutal, barbaric, and unprecedented overthrow of the Toba regime, vis-a-vis the 14 years of civil war that resulted into the loss of thousands of lives and unimaginable destruction of properties. The reality that we all have now come to grip with is that poor and innocent citizens pay a very high price owing to the manner and form activism has been directed and carried out. Indeed, FLA as well as other youth organizations begin an instrument that was used to fight government. Such fight, albeit externally induced and orchestrated, was never about the interest of the young people whose business FLA was created, but politicians who desperately wanted FLA to serve their parochial self-interest. Additionally, over the years, the Federation of Liberian Youth has sought to protect the agenda of a few political elites and have professed that until those elites have obtained state power, any regime other than the one produced by those elites, albeit democratically elected, was often opposed. This modus operandi had not translated into viable transformation of the organization, let alone the upliftment of the young people for over 4 decades. Simply accepting old antitheses, worn-out rhetorics, and outdated theories were convenient actions for many anti-government groups and opposition politicians, and they did not achieve the direct ends. In other words, it seems ingrained in Fly's political culture inherent trait in its DNA to fight government, period. Furthermore, Fly's role in every phase of political development has been the perennial agitation against government, but not for its own cause. It sought to place the interest of politicians, especially those with whom it had ideological convergence, about its own, a total contravention of its objectives. It believed, wrongfully so, that by aligning its interest with political godfathers, their objective would have been fulfilled. After all, Fly and his godfathers' interests were linked with the national interest. What a tragedy. Besides what Fly political godfathers had asked of it had provided political cushion, set a counter-folder and political action committee, whereas its constituent members were yearning for quality education, youth empowerment, and job opportunities. It is easily discernible that Fly has stuck with its father even though the signs were visible that the latter activity and wisdom, being the antithesis of the government, serves the students' vital interest, even when the government does good. After all, there was this indoctrination that government was set up to do good, and so when the government does good, it should not be praised because it was part of the social contract. This indoctrination sparsely continues today. That is why a handful of our students will hatefully, with the higher degree of venom, find fault with government. Therefore, they are programmed, indoctrinated, hypnotized to condemn everything. Therefore, they are programmed, indoctrinated, and hypnotized to condemn everything. That is why when the government announced the waiver of tuition and fees at the University of Liberia and all public universities, they were still prepared to condemn. That is why when the government builds feeder roads in their swampy communities, where some of them roll wheelbarrow to access the main street, because they were programmed, indoctrinated, and hypnotized to condemn, they will still condemn. That is why when government introduces a digital registration system at the University of Liberia, which is unprecedented, they will condemn. That is why when government places 2,000 health workers on payroll and sends some doctors abroad to specialize, because they have been indoctrinated, because they have been hypnotized, because they have been programmed, they will condemn. That is why when government honoraries, they wire or wild fees of their little brothers and sisters, because they are programmed, they are hypnotized, indoctrinated to condemn, they will condemn. That is why when government constructs the first military hospital in the history of our country, almost 75% of work completed. And that hospital will have the biggest laboratory in West Africa because they have been programmed, indoctrinated, and hypnotized to condemn, they will condemn. That is why when government provides $3 million United States dollars or above to our mothers and sisters, a macro loan to improve their businesses, because they have been hypnotized, indoctrinated, and programmed, they will what? Condemn. When government complements academic excellence by sending the 7 top performers abroad for study, that is in a wire exam, some of those people are their brothers and sisters, but because they have been programmed, indoctrinated, and hypnotized, they will what? They will condemn. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, even when government constitutes strong measure, thereby minimizing armed robbery in their own community, they will still what? Condemn. Even when government trying to fight corruption, arrest top officials that they will put on a cover and carry them for prosecution, they will still what? They will condemn. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the political ecosystem that has existed under the one-party dominant era no longer exists in our contemporary body politic. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the political ecosystem that has existed under the one-party dominant era no longer exists in our contemporary body politic. And therefore, it is meaningless to maintain the resistant philosophy. The semblance of youth empowerment that we are witnessing under the administration of His Excellency President Dr. George Mane Bekugbe is a clear manifestation that the policy environment is different. And youth development programs are taking center stage in government policy intervention, which is a far cry from the environment that Flower was thrust to. Notwithstanding the new policy environment, there are still those who see themselves in the same perpetual anti-TC stance and are labeled rarely though as troublemakers by the Liberian people. The records are there. The records are there that for over the last 3 decades, the Liberian people have resolved not to entrust them with power. For example, the 1997 elections spoke volume for the perpetual anti-TC proponents, when statistically 90% of them could not obtain 3% of the votes in the country. I hope you got me. The Liberian people have understood that those who agitate against government continuously have been labeled as troublemakers. Most of them in 1997 went to the pool. You know the records. Check it out. The only thing they will get for the pool was 0.01%, 0.02%, and the rest of it. So agitation, anti-thesis, should be what? Should be aborted. Also, similar trends were repeated in the 2011 and 2017 elections. Some of them could not win votes in their own villages. And for the sake of survival, some of the anti-TC gurus. And for the sake of survival, some of the anti-TC gurus. And for the sake of survival, some of the anti-TC gurus begin door boys, soldier boys, security guard, and watchmen to those very leaders they have criticized over the years. You criticize to be watchmen for the person you criticizing, because you are repeatedly being rejected at the pool. They play to obtain power is through the electoral process, right? So you begin anti-thesis. There is no good in anything you see. Everything is bad. And the Liberian people have labeled you as a troublemaker And when you go to the pool, they give you the necessary result that you deserve. The electrics, they have branded as unsophisticated and illiterate, pay them back at the pools. Yesterday, the streets were clogged when they made forays, as we were fanatically aroused by their presence. But today, they had dissipated from the political stage with a facade of heroic progressivism. What do they tell us? That our people do recognize distorted advocacy and that perpetual anti-TC agitations can result in relegation of status. What does this tell us? That our people do recognize destructive advocacy and that perpetual anti-TC agitations can result in relegation of status and diminish political influence in society. Those who yesterday had influence politically in society, when the war on Broad Street today, nobody recognizes them because they have been labeled as troublemaker, perpetual anti-TC agitation, so that people say that people want to spoil our country, they want to bring another war again. Having made a frank assessment of flood activity over the years, not the present flood though, the question that still lingers on is, how do we invest in youth and mobilize the population to action? I shall now attempt to carve the synthesis to the thesis and antithesis, which I believe offers a new era of hope and renewal for flower. By synthesis, I am being forward-looking, particularly considering a new outlook that takes into account the current political ecosystem vis-a-vis the aspiration of the young people. Firstly, youth investment can be facilitated if the toxic mindset. That has carried around flood activity over the years, we saw government and its functionaries as enemies, is cleansed. That toxic mindset, that government are our enemy. That even if today it didn't desire to work with government, they have betrayed the cause, they have betrayed the struggle. We got to clean, it needs to be cleansed. This administration, under the dynamic leadership of President George Manuel Weah, can never be an enemy to the young people of Liberia, especially having enjoyed immense support from within its ranks and files. So FLA must readjust their culture in exchange for a new sustained course for youth engagement, empowerment, and advancement. Secondly, new idea grounded in empathy for the disadvantaged, which takes into consideration youth-driven practical program immersed in deliberate policy investment by government should be the new modus operandi. I do recognize that the young people are sophisticated and creative agents of change, and therefore should play important roles in the proper functioning of the state, as President Weah has introduced. Thirdly, FLA should not assume the contradiction of power leadership that have remained largely impervious to change, especially with the changing dynamics, because the current political ecosystem is vastly different. A government overwhelmingly elected by the Liberian people, of course with support from your membership, the young people, is amenable to you. President Dr. George Weah and the CDC government have provided more opportunity in the governance architecture of the state for some of your members in a shorter possible time. What this reality demonstrates is that those young people, most of whom voices were not heard, and which were the basis for unleashing the anti-TC venom, are now seated at the decision-making table of the country. Remarkably, this CDC government has manifested a future leader doctrine within a relatively short period of time. Today, only the past, where other incorporated youths in government who were highly connected to those currently rendering services to the state represent the faces of majority of you, the young people. In conclusion, FLA call to action postulates that the young people will constructively engage government and in a collaborative spirit advance the causes that the youth hold dearly, projecting young people hope to national leaders and development partners in a spirit of dialogue and constructive engagement is equally important because it solves youth powerlessness, which often leads to violence. The CDC government is giving the young people a louder voice and unprecedented seat at the decision-making table, while at the same time making appropriate policy intervention to addressing the well-being. That was why the president, Dr. George Manuel Weah, and the Medical Union Democratic Change government provided tuition-free tertiary education to all public universities and foreign scholarship to students in various disciplines. These are demonstrable outcomes of this government commitment to the youth of this country. Additionally, FLA role to partner with government to make society better and not to be in opposition to the status quo. This is the synthesis and call to action. When we dive into negativities against our own country, especially in an era of technological advancement where information, real or fake, is obtained out of habit, development takes a nosedive because foreign direct investment are stalled and our international development partner pause whatever development assistance the country to the country. In other words, FLA's role is not meant to create a bad picture of government because it stifles progress and no one wins. In further call to action, the government plays a mentorship role so that the aspirations of the young people can be realized. Partnering with government is not and can never be a seller of the youth cause. Partnering with government can never be a sellout, as detractors may want you to believe. Being in partnership with government does not take away your perennial advocacy role or prevent FLA from being critical of government. The fact of the matter is that it redirects the positive energy to optimal gain for the young people because channels for redress are readily available. FLA now has to rebrand and assume its own identity rather than existing in other people's shadow as was the case in the past. It has the power to inspire our nation politically, socially, and economically by sheer numerical strength as well as the qualitative decision it takes and the prudent action it makes. For instance, FLA can partner with government in promoting excellence in schools, scholarship and employment opportunity, and also putting up a united front against all forms of exploitation against the young people. This further guarantees a better future for the young people of this country. Finally, let me reiterate how elated I am for your preferment along with your team. I have no doubt in your ability to lead this potentially viable youth organization to great success in this new dispensation. I also wish to acknowledge you that whatever future you desire for FLA, let it be a future that puts Liberia first, betters the lives of the young people, makes you realize your full potentials, and renounces violence as a means of settling disputes or seeking redress. Make the best of this given opportunity, and God Almighty will be the pillow of your strength. Once more, congratulations. I thank you.
The Federation of Liberian Youth, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we are gathered here today, and today is a very historic day Today is historic, not because, again, young people have gathered, but because this is the first of its kind in the history of the Federation of Liberian Youth to have an inaugural program. And when we took over, we thought that most of what has happened in time past need to be changed. And with that change in mind, we thought to engage our colleagues throughout the length and breadth of Liberia and our development partners to introducing the new model of youth engagement in our country. Our transition process was not just an easy one. It became very difficult for us to do this transition. However, we have reached this far. And let me particularly thank the Minister of Youth and Sports, Minister D. Zoka Wilson, for his leadership role played in helping us in this transition process and our partners in ensuring that the Federation of Liberian Youth will transition. Mr. President-elect, you are taking on a responsibility on behalf of the single most largest constituency of the state, the young people. The hopes and aspirations of young people is actually in the hands of you that have currently been elected to steer the affairs of the Federation for 2 years. In flight, as leader of the Federation, you need to bear in mind 3 major things. 1, you must be a diplomat, you must be a good negotiator, and you must also be a good advocate. With these 3 guiding principles, you will be able to lead the young people to a noble destiny. On that note, and because of the historic nature of this ceremony upon which all future ceremony will be referenced, I will now, on behalf of the immediate past leadership and all other leaders of the Federation of Liberian Youth that have come and served, turn over today the gablet of authority to you, Mr. President-elect, and your officials, bearing in mind that the hopes and aspirations of our generation is now, the fate of our generation now lies in your hand. With that, I would like to say, in this symbolic envelope, we present to you the hopes and aspirations of young people. We present to you the advocacy level of young people. We say to you that this struggle to having this program or this transition has not been easy, but this has been our dream. And we have played our part. Let this not be the first and the last. Let this ceremony be a continuous ceremony that young people will witness throughout the length and breadth of our country. Thank you so much for the victory.
Okay, sorry for the protocols mixed up. Now, let's do the proper swearing in. Following the one that the outgoing president has done, Mr. Tamba, I ask all the elected officials to raise up your hand. And then you now swear by saying, I, you will mention your name, not the ECOWAS ambassador. I solemnly swear to uphold the constitutions of FLY, to defend the interests of youth in Liberia, to move the youth of Liberia to the next level. So help me God. Thank you.
Okay. It was observed in the wake of global calls for young people to not just be future leaders, but to serve as partners, development partners to government, to serve on the table of national decision making, as illustrated in the United Nations Security Council Resolution 2550, that we are partners to government in integration and global growth, and the call for young people to be given a space to serve this purpose. The three national institutions, the Federation of Liberia Youth, the Liberia National Students Union, and the Mano River Union Youth Parliament Liberia chapter, has come with a decision to honor His Excellency Ambassador Dr. George Manawia for his numerous contributions to youth development and providing a space for our progress. The President of the Liberia National Student Union, so the President of the Liberia National Student Union will read the inscription of the award, and the President of the Federation of Liberian Youth will present the award.
Thank you very much. We refuse to be programmed, indoctrinated, and hypnotized to condemn everything. On the basis of that, we are here today to set a new agenda for the young people and students of this country. In the spirit of peace building and youth development, the Federation of Liberian Youth, in collaboration with the Liberia National Students Union and the Mano River Union Youth Parliament, the MRUYP Liberia chapter, wants to honor you, His Excellency Ambassador Dr. George Manawia, 24th President of the Republic of Liberia and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Liberia. We want to present this certificate or award for the provisions of the following reasons: youth empowerment and participation in governance of our country through the unprecedented appointment of young people in senior government positions of trust, and for the creation and the ambience for a peaceful democratic transition within the National Youth and Students Organization, namely the Federation of Liberian Youth, the Liberia National Students Union, the Mano River Union Youth Parliament, Liberian chapter. I now have the single most honor, pleasure. I'm also gratified to now turn over this award to the President of the young people of this country, to be presented on behalf of the young people, the students, and also our counterpart, because the MRUYP represent the parliament in Liberia. And so once again, and I have the pleasure to thank this award to the Vice President who also submitted to the President before the presentation to the President of the Republic of Liberia. Thank you very much.
President Williams, let me just say that, and now whenever I call you, I'll be calling my father, because that's my father's name. So every time I say Williams, I'm calling my father, even though you are young. Because that's my father's name, William Tape Wea. Our guest speaker, B. Bakugbe Jr. Twewe. Minister McGill, Minister Samuel Twa, our Ambassador Baba Tune, our resident coordinator Yakub, officials of government, Mr. Amos William, President of FLA, officials and members of FLA. Well, first of all, let me apologize that we have to leave. We have to leave because we have some work on deck. So I want you to excuse me. But before I leave you, I just want to say to our young man that introduced our guest speaker, you listen to him, his CV tells us a lot. And our guest speaker's speech, you know that he's a professor. For me, I'm not a professor. But we are happy to have such a steady person, a wonderful person as our gatekeeper for the Republic of Liberia. But to FLA, I just wanted to know that we listened to Bill. He talk about theses and anti-theses. And those that are students of politics, you should come to a conclusion that sometime at a certain point, we have to change the mode of operandus. So the thesis and anti-thesis, I've come to a realization in my own research. I noticed that in every revolution, there are revolutionaries in my own research, I noticed that there are true revolutionaries, and there are also revolutionary want to be. And those that read and study history and on politics, you see that revolutionaries are successful people. Simply because at a certain point, thank you. At a certain point in their quest for whatever they want, they understand that dialogue is important. Those that revolutionary want to be, they have no point of caution. Through all the years, they carry on their work because they want to be seen as revolutionaries. But how can you be a revolutionary if you don't want to get on the table to discuss. If you notice, those revolutionaries want to be. As much as they want to persuade you to believe that they are revolutionaries, those people are not successful. How can a person at 60 or 70 years live with his mother, and you, young man, he's telling you to get into the street? But if you now believe that those are the revolutionaries that cannot tell you right or wrong, that cannot make you see when you are wrong, then they are not revolutionaries. Because a true revolutionary is a successful person that guides and leads people to a different state of mind, of change, equality, promotion of peace. Those are the true revolutionaries. And I can make reference. Fidel Castro was a revolutionary. Today, who would have known that America and Cuba can build relation? So Fidel is a true revolutionary because he wanted people to have equal opportunity. But just when he thought that making sure that there is no relation between him and America, and people suffer, so he had to reinvent the wheels. Came back on the table and said, for the sake of the people of Cuba, this is time to make peace. So those that constantly trying to dent your future, I think you now should sit on your own table and then dialogue. They fly. We heard about fly for so long. Today you have a new leadership. What have you achieved since you are in existence? All we know of you is to get in the streets. What have you achieved? It's simply because you are following people that believe that they are revolutionaries. They cannot advise you. They advise you. So today should be a new paradigm shift in your mode of operandi. We listen to the ECOWAS ambassador. Sometimes getting on the table doesn't compromise who you are. It only shows that you're a leader, because to lead is to understand the issues. Remember, today we are leaders, but we had our own misstep in coming to the leadership. If we didn't listen or didn't guide our people, today we will not be standing here. And then I will say, and that's, you all are witnesses. We went to 2005 elections. We could have stayed in the street. Maybe we were going to stay be in the street. But we believed that there was a future for the young people. So fighting won't help. Let it go, and then continue to strive for the future. 2010, it happened again. We went on a negotiation table. But those revolutionaries want to be. They thought that we were cowards. But you see, it's easy to see someone being a coward when you don't have the sense of stability. So today, here we are. Most of you came from refugee camps. You went to refugee camps during the war. And I'm glad that I was part of what was happening, even though I was not around during the war, but going to all the refugee camps, I could see that even those revolution wanted to be, were not comfortable being in a refugee camp with you. So they got their luxury apartments and stayed thinking that they persuade you to rebel just in case they come back. They never came to a refugee camps. They never cared to know where you live. They never cared to know how you're going to rebuild your life to come back. But those people came by and got jobs. You still remain where you are. Young people, this is your time. This is the time for you to drive your own life, understand your own issues, get on the table and discuss the issues, promote peace, because without peace, your world will not be stable. So, Mr. President, don't be me. Mr. President, don't be me, be you. To all of our friends, our young people here, don't be me, because you can never be me. Be you, because when you are you, then you strive for a better life. Even my son, Timothy, George, would never be me. Either he'll be more than me, but he'll not be me. So, to strive for excellence, to strive for a better life, it's all through negotiation, fruitful negotiation. And Fly, now you are changing from what you were, you're coming to the actual scope of the life that you're supposed to live. So we want to welcome you into that life. You know, you've been existing for how many years? For how many years? Over 40 years. You don't even have an office. You see, so this is the methodology of the revolutionary want to be. You understand? They don't care if you have an office to operate, because if you have an office, you will understand that that office should be managed well. When we walk into the office, it's to dialogue. But if you don't have an office, it's easy to persuade you to walk in the street. So we don't want you to compromise what you believe in. But we want you to sit on the table and dialogue. It's important. The world is involved today. And the world have gone through difficulties, terrorism, and what have you. Today, the real society, the world order today, want peace and stability. We must work towards our peace, because Liberia is a United Nations story, success story. Let us maintain that. With peace, we can strive to be better. Yes, times are hard. But 12 years ago, it was harder. If 12 years ago, if you can't get in the street, today you want to get in the street. Things are better. 20 years ago, you could not even walk in the street with your open tap. And those people that could take your car from you because there was no law and order. Today, is the same people that make noise and tell you, walk around code. They say code, they have the code. You are young people, you need to get on the table and realize that today, in the 21st century, we need to look at the rationale and come to a logical conclusion of the way we want to do things. So let us now operate with those that are true revolutionaries, and forget about those that want to be revolutionary to be. Congratulations. I hold you to your word. You have to be true to your word of maintaining the peace to make sure that you fight for the young people growth. That is your job. Your job is not to compromise. You know, where when you go to Mr. A, he gives you your gifts, and then you don't care to even sit down with Mr. B. This is the time for you to dialogue so government and its people can see you as a leader. I have uncles that started the Moja, and I'm sure you can name them. I have my uncles. I have my father that was a member of the Moja. I grew up in a house where the Matthews and the Tipoter, which is my uncle, sit and discuss. I was right there at LU when student was jumping through the windows. I grew up right there. But today, for 50 to 60 years, going to 70 years, if you're writing a book, or if you're reading a book on them, you will find out that 60 years is a long time to be wasted. If you will keep your pattern for 60 years and you never change, then you will have a problem. Anyone that rebels for 60 years, nobody knows you. If you talk about peace for 60 years, your name will be written. So we still have our fathers and our uncles and around. You understand? Are they a revolutionary? But people label them as troublemakers. And I can attest to it. I am a son of a revolutionary. I am a son of a sponsor of Moja. But they are labeled as troublemakers. People don't want to go on the table with them. It should not be you. You are young. You people are young. You should make sure that in anything you do, there should be negotiations. And with that, you can understand what they think, and maybe you can help for that understanding. So all the best. We sat for a while, 1 hour, we spoke. And I told you, Mr. President, for the years you existed, if you don't have an office, then I think even you and those former leaders have a problem. And the only problem, because it's not possible. You see, sometimes, you know, most of us here, a lot of people are professors. So sometimes you don't see the common logic in anything we do. And I said, and I will say again, you cannot be a professor. You cannot be an educated person, as we boast in the country. And in anything you do, you are not successful. Then you are not educated. Because the measure of education is not to read and write. The measure of education is for anything that you engage in, to be successful in it. That's the measure of education. And I always make my simple analogy, but people laugh at me. I made the simple analogy and people laugh. You see some of our folks that don't know how to read and write. But those people, they own 10 houses, 50 cars. But this is a man I know went in classroom. But you that went through the corridor of university, you don't even have a bicycle. And then you claim that you're successful. So, you, to strive for excellence, is to understand that you have to have a skill to negotiate. Our partners want to deal with non-troublemakers. And for us to recommend you to our partners, you have to promote civility and promote peace. Because without civility, you will not have friends. And I just want to caution you. So in anything you do, again, don't compromise what you want to do for the young people. But make sure that in doing that, you should be civil and negotiate. I'm glad to be here, and I promise you I'm going to be here. So please, you're always asking the president your permission. So let me send you the small P. Let me ask your permission to leave and go do your work. God bless you all.